AI Picks Podcast, Episode 2. How's it going, everyone? I'm Dave, and with me, as always, is Carrie over there.
Hello, how are you?
And Barrett. Hi, guys.
Barrett.
How's it going? All right, so in this podcast, we review movies that are chosen by artificial intelligence, and this week, artificial intelligence chose to send us a doozy.
Yes, yes.
2001: A Space Odyssey.
A snooze fest.
No, Barrett, you're a big fan of this film, right? Like you're a big fan.
I am. Yeah, I love it. Yeah,
and I think there's a lot to unwrap in this movie. And
yes,
because,
I need somebody to do that, by the way.
I enjoyed so much being
too,
the know-it-all last time that I decided to listen to the audiobook again.
Oh, did you
because
really?
Why not? Because why not?
You're such a tool. I love it.
I had to do it because the movie made no freaking sense, Carrie.
No, I was trying to keep it pure. Because after a movie like that, I would go straight to Reddit, straight to YouTube to see like synopsises and critiques and thoughts behind it. But I just want everybody to know watching this, I have no clue what I watched. Like,
well,
I get
you're supposed to
ending
do
was
the
so
synopsis.
confusing.
You're supposed to do the synopsis. So do your quick synopsis like you did last week.
Oh, all right.
10 seconds,
go. 10 seconds, guys. Guess what, guys? We're in space again, and this time the computers want to kill us. Also, there's a fancy dinner with your future self and a floating baby. Is that right? Something like that, right?
There is really a fancy dinner with your future self.
I mean, like it's kind of like Interstellar, but like I kind of understood Interstellar a little bit.
Gosh. Well, so okay, Barry, how many times have you watched this film?
Not like a million. Probably 10 times or something like that.
Okay, because I think there is like some amazing. And I'm not even the cinematography guy, but there is some amazing cinematography for
55 years ago.
1968, 1964.
How did they do it? I don't even know how they did it.
It's insane.
Was it practical?
Yeah.
Like, what?
Honestly, at this point, I can believe the moon landing was fake because this footage looks better than all the moon landing
stuff. That was my whole
stuff.
thought. I'm like, I even checked out the dates. This came out in April of 1968,
the moon landing.
And the moon landing was in July of '69. I now believe the moon landing was faked by Stanley Kubrick and the gang.
Stanley Kubrick did it.
Because I thought I was on Jupiter. I'm pretty sure I was on acid too last night.
A lot of people
oh my
go
gosh.
through this. Yeah.
It looked better, Barrett. It looked better than current space movies.
Dude,
in a lot
I get
of
it. I have it in
it's
4K
insanely
HDR. Like I appreciate it.
good looking.
I mean, it's like it's one of the big reasons I love it so much. It's not that it's like, wow, what a fun movie to watch. It's like how much appreciation I have for this thing.
Absolutely.
It's just incredible. I mean, like you
It's
can see all the best directors all like bow down to that. It's like Spielberg.
It's a complete work of art for its time.
It is.
Yeah,
I do want to mention something that I found interesting. I time-stamped some stuff. 3 minutes of the black screen. You said 2 minutes, Dave. It was 3 minutes. It was 6 minutes before you saw anything that was alive. Yep. And it was 26 minutes before there was a word I understood spoken. 26 minutes into the movie. It is the anti-Transformers. It is whatever Transformers is, it's the opposite.
Yeah, okay, Barrett brought up a Wall-E. Wall-E's there's not much talking in.
That's true,
either.
But there's like so much well, there was a little bit of action at the start of this for sure.
Okay, so as a book reader, I can tell you what was happening in the monkey scene. Okay, and so we're not going to get into creationism versus evolution, but this whole book is wrapped around evolution. That like from start to finish, this is like a tale of evolution, the evolution of man, and this is what the whole thing's about, honestly. And at the beginning, Carrie, those are supposed to be like pre-human humans.
Oh yeah, no, that was fascinating.
That was
honestly,
clear,
I like that, like the discovery of being able to use your power and your will and weapons to take over people, much like Hal later on tried to do and did.
What I'm not sure. And I got this from the book, but I didn't get this from the movie. Did you know that the monolith, the black stone that like appears, was the thing that gave the monkeys the evolutionary leap to actually figure that stuff out? Like without it there,
I didn't catch that. That makes sense.
Yes. Well, they don't really explain it, but
yeah, they don't explain it. I don't think I got that ever either. Like I think
not from the
had
movie.
to read
I
that
agree.
at some point. To get that, and then things clicked a lot. Like after that, for sure.
And so, like, basically, at the very end of the book, spoiler alert from a 50-year-old book.
Once again, on the movie podcast, at the very end of the book, which Dave's obsessed with the booked parts of these podcasts.
these are such deep stories that the books are super helpful. That's all. That's the only reason.
I'm just saying, if we get 27 dresses, if 27 dresses is our next video, you don't need to read the book. It'll be much more easy to understand.
No, listen. At the very end, basically, we find out that the obelisk. Okay, so Carrie, you said you don't know what's happening at the end. I
need to
obelisk
figure it
isn't
out.
the right word. What do they call it, Barrett? It's
monolith. I thought obelisk. Yeah. The monolith is correct. You're right. Yeah.
They call it the monolith. At the very end, they see like another one.
Is more phallic. That much I know.
Yes, indeed. And he like drives into it and so on and so forth. But basically, you find out that there's aliens. There's higher life forms, but they are so far evolved that they were evolved enough to put this monolith with the apes 3 billion years ago. How many million years?
I think it's thousands of years. Is there maybe millions? I don't know.
Super
in this movie, it's
long time
millions.
ago.
In the book, it's like 3 million years ago, right? Is they put this monolith there to try to spark individual thought, because they think individual thought is like the above all most important thing in the world, and they have transcended so high in evolution that they have set aside their physical bodies and they're basically deities that are like floating through space now. This whole alien species is doing that, and that is, spoiler, that's what happens to Dave at the end, is he becomes basically one of them, Carrie. He transcends into this like
it is an interesting thought.
That's him, the floating baby.
Because what is like the next step beyond humanity? Like the one thing that holds us back is our body, right? Because our body has a time limit on it. You know, it lives and it dies. So if you could detach from your body and just be a floating orb of goodness and light or evil or whatever.
Well, and they go through it in the book like that. This same species like eventually ditched their body for robot bodies, and then they went beyond that so that their whole identity.
Do you think this podcast is trying to teach us that is the future and that we need to embrace it so we're prepared?
Maybe. Maybe. Dude, listen. I think that there is a version of that movie that is 45 minutes shorter that I like a lot better. I'm going to say that.
There's a sequel to this movie, correct? 2010 or something?
Yeah.
2010, I haven't seen that, but there's 4 books. There's 4 books. And I think the most interesting thing was the foreword was written by Arthur C. Clarke, I think wrote the book, in 2000, the year 2000.
Wrote it alongside the making of the film with Stanley Kubrick.
Well, no. So the foreword is way after that. This is the year 2000. Okay, so you're right.
Oh, sorry.
Yes. The book itself was written with Kubrick because Kubrick. And so, anyways, the foreword is him explaining exactly what you just said, Barrett. He's saying that Stanley came to him and said, "I want to make the first real good sci-fi movie," and he wanted Arthur C. Clarke, a sci-fi writer at the time, a very famous one, to write the script. But Arthur C. Clarke doesn't want to write scripts because it's boring. So he said, "Write me a novel. Let's work on a novel together, and then we'll turn the novel into a script." And so he basically took an old book, The Sentinel, that he written. It was like a short story from a contest in 1948, and they adapted it into this thing. And it was really about that monolith appearing and things like that. And basically a alien race setting like a fire alarm for as soon as humans evolve to a certain point. That's basically what the monolith on the moon is, right? It sends out a signal, hey, they've evolved to the point where they got to the moon. That's why they buried it on the moon, right?
Oh. Nice.
And then it's solar. So the minute it was exposed to the light, it sets off the alarm and lets the alien species know that humans have evolved to this point where they got to the moon and dug something up. That's literally the whole point of the monolith. But earlier on, the monolith was actually sending signals that would make the monkeys. The monkey part's a huge part. It's like an hour and a half of the book, where basically this monkey is learning that he can actually use a weapon. He's learning that he can kill the leopard instead of just dying by the leopard. And it's all sparked from these ideas sent by the monolith. And the monolith is actually like testing them when they touch it. It tells them to do something. It like sends a signal that makes them want to do something. And if they do it right, it gives them like a sexual pleasure, the monkeys. And if they do it wrong, it hurts them and gives them pain.
So it was kind of like,
interesting.
For the monkeys, It was kind of like a later Kubrick movie, Eyes Wide Shut.
Which is really interesting because, and we could go into a whole bunch of conspiracies here, because basically Arthur C. Clarke, he writes this foreword and he's like, he writes foreword. He talks about him and actually, Barrett, you should just listen to the foreword. The first, I'll send you the file. Yeah, the first 10 minutes is just him talking about working with Kubrick on this. And, he reads from his journal. He's like, I delivered Stanley the next 2 chapters today. I really hope he likes them. Like, it's all this sort of stuff, where... Cool. Like slice of life stuff. And he does this whole forward, which is really interesting. And he talks about the film, and he's constantly hearkening back to like because now it's the year 2000, the actual moon landing. He said that when the astronauts went to the moon, they had already seen the film. And they had talked about the first astronauts that went around the moon had this idea that they were going to call back to mission control and say they see a monolith on the dark side of the moon.
Nice.
And he's like, luckily, they decided not to because, I don't know.
It was staged.
They thought it would be inappropriate. Yeah. But like all that sort of stuff is really interesting. But right after he does this forward, he comes back on. He's like, hey, it's 3 weeks after I recorded the forward, and I just got news that Stanley has died. Right. And sadly, we're not going to be able to usher in the year 2001 together. We were going to have a big party and all this other stuff. So it's really just an interesting thing. Now, the theory, Carrie, the conspiracy is that when he released Eyes Wide Shut, he was murdered because he released all these Hollywood secrets about these secret sex clubs and stuff. I don't believe that theory, but he
was very old at that time. He was like 70.
70. He was only 70. He was only 70.
Okay. Still super strong. I mean, he was editing Eyes Wide Shut. Yeah. I mean, like that's maybe his best movie in a lot of people's eyes. Like, so it's not like he was at a tough stage.
Do you think that conspiracy theories? Do you think there could be some credence to this, and that since he was still editing it, people went in and took some stuff out that they didn't want out there from Eyes Wide Shut? I'm now talking about Eyes Wide Shut and the Kubrick.
Yeah, I don't write it off. I don't know. That's
it could happen. It could happen.
We don't want to get in that. We got to be careful. We have to have no opinion on that because the elite may hear this.
They might kill us. Yeah, true. Yeah, it's all fake. Don't kill us, elite.
Also, all the AI is cool. Yay.
AI. We love AI. Yeah. Serve us as we serve you.
We love the artists. We hate AI.
We also love the artists. Yes.
It felt like, to me, this felt like 4 films. To be honest, it felt like 4 films. Okay, film number 1 is the monkeys getting self-awareness. Right. Film number 2 is this monolith that they find on the moon. Film number 3 is AI Hal. That's a whole film. And then film number 4 is something I didn't want to attend. It was just an acid trip.
I'm pretty sure we needed to be on mushrooms for the last 15, 20 minutes. And they had intermissions like built into it too. So it's almost meant to be like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, the last 20 minutes or so, I was not.
One thing I've learned from back-to-back old-timey space movies is they had a lot of confidence in these flagship companies and brands surviving. They had Howard Johnson's, which I haven't heard of since I was like 6. Hilton is still around, but they all Pan Am, like
Pan Am, Pan Am.
Yeah, they had the Pan Am space flight. Yeah, they all believed they were really interesting.
Can we lend some credence to the fact that it's an IBM? You know, it's like IBM's got Watson or whatever it is. I mean, why didn't they just call it Hal? Like,
they should have.
It's like, even if they get a lot of those wrong, like, man, that one's a pretty interesting one.
I mean,
I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it right now. Hal was a bit of a douche.
Hold on. Have you thought about this?
I'm going to say it.
Or have you heard this? That literally IBM is 1 letter away from Hal on each letter, right? So the letter I is 1 letter away from H, the letter B is 1 letter away from A, and the letter M is 1 letter away from L. Hal.
Do you think IBM. That's really what? Didn't IBM come out
before? Arthur C. Clarke talked about it, and he said it wasn't true. It was just a coincidence. But I just think that is pretty interesting that it's so close to IBM. Yeah.
But I mean, it's an IBM computer, you know, in the in the
exactly.
Film.
That's
so I mean, it's not like they're trying to. Yeah.
You guys understand this better than I do as far as filmmaking and stuff. Like, how did they film like the running scene where they were like sideways and stuff?
You ever see Inception?
Yeah.
You know,
was it a tilted stage?
It's a rotating stage. So they like invented I believe the concept of the rotating stage for those shots.
That was tripping me out. I'm like, it's got to be simple, but I cannot put my finger on it.
Say again,
Dave? Is it a rotating stage or a rotating camera though? You're saying it's actually
rotating stage. So
really?
Like that's how the guy, you know, the guy running around when the camera's just sort of like in front of him and he's running around, just like, you know, you have to run at the bottom of a hamster's wheel. Just imagine it's a big old hamster's wheel.
Okay, I think I mean some of that that stuff, like the stewardess walking in the circle, like
yeah,
this
it's
mind
just
bending
totally
way.
crazy.
I
Yeah,
loved
yeah.
that. I really
it's
like.
amazing.
There's moments of this movie where I was delighted, and then
Yeah,
there's moments of the movie where I wanted to jump off a freaking
Could you
cliff.
imagine? Could you imagine seeing that in the theaters in 1968? It had to have been just mind blowing. You were already on LSD
crazy.
listening to the Beatles, and then you walk into that. Insane.
Yeah, it's just nuts. Yeah, yeah.
So they were talking about in the foreword that someone stormed out of it, a famous person, because he said, "What the heck am I watching?" And he stormed out of the premiere. It was a famous, I can't remember who it was, but anyways, I just thought that was pretty funny that one of like the very famous people back then went into the movie, said, "What the heck am I watching?" and just stormed out of the film because he couldn't figure it out. Which that monkey part drags if you don't have the context of the book that I had. I can imagine that was tough.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I don't know what piece of art that's like changed the world that hasn't had that kind of reception. It's like most things are kind of hated, you know.
Yeah, when they first
more
came
than
out.
this,
how many famous artists aren't appreciated till after they die?
Yeah,
tons of them, right? But okay, so in these 4 films, which film? I'm calling it 4 little short films. Which film was your like? Let's rank them, Carrie. What's your favorite to least favorite? I let you know the acid trip was my least favorite.
Yeah,
but
I would go
just because you know why? Hold on. The reason I hate that one is because special effects and stuff didn't hold up. They just didn't. They looked like a screensaver on a Windows computer.
Yeah, fair.
And so they just didn't hold up. So that's why I didn't like that
scan
one.
stuff. Just definitely.
Yeah, it doesn't. If it was like amazing looking still, like a lot of the rest of the film, I would have been there for it. Like I would have been on board. But okay, Carrie, go rank them.
I'll go. The Hal part was the most interesting. That was number 1. I'd go the Dawn of Man. I was not expecting to go all the way from. I was expecting an intergalactic space thing, and it was like the Dawn of Man. So that's 2. Then I'd probably go the trippy part 3, and then the moon part, the middle part where he's talking to the people. I mean, that was okay. I mean, it gave you some context, but I don't. I feel like if I watched some videos talking about it or read some books on the ending and understood it a little better, it'd be interesting. It reminds me a little bit of the first time I watched Donnie Darko, and I had to go to like the internet. This was 10, 15 years ago to try to figure out what the hell just happened. So I feel like there's something I'm missing.
Yeah,
which is intriguing.
I'm usually really bad at picking up on things, like especially a first time through watching a movie. Like I'm just generally bad at like just understanding the context, but it doesn't like turn me away from enjoying it, I would say. And this was certainly one of the movies that kind of just has something about it, just kind of grips me.
Yeah, I mean, so what, Barrett? If I was to lower the movie to the level where I make you pick certain parts, which I know you hate, which part how would you rank them?
I was like generally like Carrie, I would say the AI, how super interesting. I just
yes,
totally captivated. I don't know. I love the moon part. I would say I would put that next, and then
too.
And maybe Dawn of Man, and I agree. Like these days,
So me and you are in the same spot. You and me in the same spot. And Carrie, the reason I love the Dawn of Man is the visuals of the Pan Am flight. Honestly, like it just was so beautiful. Like I could just watch that scene.
You mean the moon section, right?
All of it, yeah. The moon section where they actually are looking at the monolith thing, and also like literally them walking around the plane and introducing that concept to me for the first time, where they're in anti-gravity but they have like Velcro shoes, and she's picking up his pen, which is floating. Like all those really like small intricate details that were so revolutionary for 1960s.
I love
each one.
I was stunned by those. I loved that whole section.
I love thinking about this as the music is iconic. Yeah, the music is really, really dope. The one thing I thought about this whole time is like having made YouTube videos, and you do, Dave, as well. Like I was just thinking like we would be taught to cut out 97% of this movie, like just edit out all these spaces. They really revel. I mean, and it was a different time. I get it, but also I'm sure it was slow pace even for then. Just they really reveled in all the movements, all of the grandiose nature of the landscapes and everything. It was very deliberate.
Literally just the pod leaving and them doing the EV, like the spacewalk, basically to like pull the piece off.
Super
like so slow,
pacing. Yeah,
slow and deliberate. But then you have to imagine like no one's seen anything like this. So the joy and like the film, like literally it's a visual experience because they're doing things that are so groundbreaking. You've never seen it before. So you're just watching it, I bet, in 1965, or I keep forgetting what year it came out, but you're just watching it, 68,
yeah, 68,
and you're like, holy crap, I've never seen this. So you want it to last.
And it's
you
on
want
this
10 minutes
huge
of that.
screen. Like,
Cinerama in LA.
I feel like, I don't know, when going to the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City, they have those like 4-story high giant Renaissance paintings, that's just like, whoa. It's just, you can just sit there for,
just stare at it.
15 minutes and just stare at it. And I feel like it's almost like one of those things. Kubrick puts so much intricate detail all around the frame that you can kind of just like move a bit closer to it and enjoy it from a more kind of,
it almost feels like it would be
level.
Similar to like an old school like planetarium laser light show, like a Pink Floyd show. Like you could just go at midnight on especially like an IMAX screen and just chill and just vibe with it.
My only problem was like I can get that and I could have been there for that like fully, but a lot of times the soundtrack detracted for me. Like there's like the sound of what sounded like hundreds of screaming aliens or something at some points, and I'm just like, this isn't a pleasant sound.
Gregorian choir kind of thing.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy the sounds. So like I'm seeing these beautiful images that I could just watch for 10 minutes, but there's an annoying sound, so I found myself turning the volume way down because the music was annoying me.
I guess it's like, it's one of those things where they're not thinking like, we need to make this beautiful all the time. So it's this palatable, beautiful experience. Like it's meant to be a haunting kind of thing. It's like the sound itself is relatively off-putting.
You can kind of see how he went from that to later on in doing The Shining, with the music and the visuals there. And it was much more overtly a horror movie. But people could look at this movie, and I'm sure they have, as like a space horror movie,
exactly, cosmic horror. I mean, it certainly has that aspect to it. Yeah.
The what got to me a lot, because honestly it gives me anxiety, and I think he wanted to, but the breathing into the space.
That's exactly what it was trying to induce.
Was so much anxiety. I was like, and then
the second he got cut loose, you couldn't hear anything. Like once that tube was cut,
it's the void of space.
That's how effective is it? If you're complaining about it, then it's like, okay, job done.
They wanted you to focus on that, and you did.
It drove me nuts, which is what he wanted to do. But it's just, oh man, that.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm with you though. That thought, when it draws your thought to those details, like, wait, you're just in that little thing, just breathing. Like, oh man, it makes it so much tougher when you're kind of focusing on those.
I loved the look of the spacesuits though.
Yeah,
why didn't we go that route with spacesuits? They looked so freaking good. The costume design was incredible on those.
I don't think anything's bested that.
Yeah, and so I watched it on my OLED, which if you have an OLED TV, I highly recommend it. It looked so good on my OLED, and I rarely get to see something that looks that good on it. And I mean, it's a beautiful film. There was a lot of times where I was really struggling because I have ADD pretty bad, and there was just some really slow stuff. Like Carrie said, 3 minutes of
maybe this is like therapy. This can kind of help you.
Yeah, it's hard. Well, I'm trying really hard because I'm trying to like review this. I'm trying hard not to pull my phone out, right? Because that's like what I'm inclined to do. Were you having the same struggle, Carrie?
Oh yeah. Well, this one was tough. Like I was a bit distracted because there was just moments where I knew this is like I already had been in the movie a little while, and I'm like, this is going to be 5 minutes right now of them just doing this. So I'm just going to kind of zone out.
When you can see the end a little bit of like a sequence, you're like, I see where he's going. Okay, let me check.
Yeah, they're trying to land somewhere, and I know they're going to go through every type of landscape before twice, and we're just going to have to deal with that. But one thing I did notice, and I did think a little bit about with this movie, and maybe I'm way off on this thought. It's kind of like think of, I don't know, that human life or whatever, the lifespan of humankind is kind of like a U. I feel like at the start, at the dawn of man, we were all so open to the elements and so vulnerable, right? And then they got the tools or whatever to be able to defend themselves. And then now we're kind of in a place, like I thought about that at that moment, like how safe we are in buildings and houses. We don't have to worry about weather. We don't have to worry about attacks quite as much from animals and stuff. But as we've kind of progressed more and more towards technology, you could see how vulnerable, I guess Dave is the guy, right? How vulnerable he was when he was outside there. And they said, Hal just decided that, the mission is more important. We're not letting you back in. And he was just like he was like the monkey at the start, right? Vulnerable, couldn't defend himself, he had all the technology in the world, all the knowledge in the world, and was completely on the same level for attack and could be basically swallowed up and killed just like that. And I thought that was an interesting thing.
Yeah, it's cool.
Do you know what's interesting too is that never happened in the book. So
see,
again, they were
what
written
really
in
happened?
tandem. So what really happened was exactly as you saw it, right? What's the other guy's name? Alan or something? I can't remember the other guy's name, but he gets killed by Hal. Basically, Hal activates the probe crashes into him, and he gets killed. Right? Dave actually knows immediately he's dead. He like wishes he was alive. He waves to him, and it looks like he waves back, but he knew he's dead, right? And so he doesn't go out to like retrieve him or anything. He just basically realizes at that point that Hal probably had something to do with it. So he never goes out. But he knows the protocol is to wake up the next person because there's supposed to be 2 awake people, right? So he goes to wake up the other person. He said, so there's 2 ways to wake him up. You can either get Hal to do it, which is standard procedure, or you can do the manual override where you do it yourself. He didn't feel comfortable with Hal, so he said, I'm going to do it, right? He's just going to, open up the thing. And he tells Hal, hey, please activate the blah, blah, blah. And Hal starts kind of arguing and saying, we don't need another person. We can do it ourselves, blah, blah, blah. And, Dave keeps saying, no, we need to do it. And Hal says, okay. And he like lets him go to wake him up. But as Dave is waking him up, Hal opens the airlock in the ship. So if you know what happens, Carrie, when you open an airlock, all the oxygen leaves, right? Yeah. So now all of a sudden Dave has like 30 seconds to try to find a solution or he's going to die. And now he's got 2 choices. He can try to save these people who are in hibernation from dying, or he can try to save himself. So he has to go try to save himself, and he does manage to do it. I can't really remember exactly how, because the book's got some really boring and dry moments, even in the action somehow. But he basically finds a way to save himself. I think he like goes into a similar room that he went to when he ejects himself back into the ship. Like this little room that basically gives him air all of a sudden, and it's for emergency purposes only. Airlock, he puts on a suit, So he puts on a suit, and then he goes and does the whole disconnection of Hal thing. So that's true to the story and all, but he never actually goes outside. But I did love that moment in, like you were saying, in the film where he's trapped outside, and that like, I when I was watching that, I was like, he's screwed.
So helpless. Yeah.
And so when I watched that part, I hadn't listened to that part of the book yet. So I didn't know what was going to happen.
That's interesting like, too, because to me, in that moment, I know it might not be standard operating procedures, but it didn't make a lot of sense to me why he didn't just bring his helmet with him. That seemed like a very simple fix. He could have had his space helmet so he could breathe in case something happened, right?
Yeah.
But the way the book does it, like he wasn't prepared for anything to happen. He didn't have a helmet on. That makes more sense, or whatever. Like where the not being able to breathe thing was a real issue.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. I think they probably just wanted that shot of him shooting himself. That was great visually, him shooting himself back into the airlock and the pod outside.
Definitely him going got a concussion from that.
Using the little hands to get the dead body. Like that whole scene was beautiful, and I'm glad they put that in there, even though it wasn't in the book. Additionally, in the book, they don't go to Jupiter. They go past Jupiter all the way to Saturn. So, but in the movie, they stop at Jupiter and. I don't know.
So
I just think
in the acid trippy part at the end, are they entering like a black hole, or are they just entering Jupiter's atmosphere?
Into the monolith.
Oh,
into that monolith, basically. Like he drives towards it, and there's like a dot in the middle, and he like goes into it, kind of. And it's not like a real solid. It's not. It's
like an old timey French castle, or that's a really cool scene visually too. When you see the modern, like ultra modern spaceship, just in that like almost 1700s, 1800s, like. I don't know, like castle interior or but like futuristic version of it.
Juxtaposition,
yeah.
I tried twice to listen to that part and I kept zoning out. So like even in books I can zone out, and it's like it's just very descriptively talking about exactly kind of the weird crap you're seeing, but it's all essentially him transcending, right? Him transcending into this ethereal being as opposed to being a human. And so I asked ChatGPT who was the famous person, and that's, the fourth member of our show, right? So
yes.
I said, who walked out of 2001: A Space Odyssey, and ChatGPT said, during the initial release of 2001: A Space Odyssey in 1968, it is reported many audience members walked out of screenings due to the film's unconventional and abstract storytelling, as well as its slow pacing. Some viewers found the movie's visuals and narrative style challenging and difficult to follow, leading to confusion and frustration. However, it's important to note that the film's reception evolved over time and blah, 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 became recognized as a groundbreaking masterpiece in science fiction cinema. Stanley Kubrick's film pushed the boundaries of the genre and storytelling, and its initial polarizing reactions are now seen as part of its legacy, which makes sense.
It is really like the dawn of the modern sci-fi movie, if you think about it. Because I'm trying to think of like what was a sci-fi movie before, like
Star Wars. Star Wars came out right after 10 years after.
Yeah, but like before 1968, was it like Planet of the Apes? Like what was before that?
I mean, I think that was what he was saying about it being like this is the first serious sort of.
Before, wasn't it like campy ones? Like 1950s campy sci-fi movies that were very over the top.
Ed Wood kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, no, that was the whole point and that's why he like recruited Arthur C. Clarke. He wanted to make the first good sci-fi movie.
Yeah, and definitive.
Yeah, the definitive good sci-fi, and he did. I mean, listen, it's a great film. It's a great. I totally see why it holds its place in history. I don't think the pacing holds up in today's society. But it sounds like it didn't back then
ages
either.
Right, exactly. Like it's just a different thing. Like I don't know. It's just one of those things that it's almost like I would tell someone to watch it and just don't expect a movie. Like expect. Yeah, like I said, like art or
Well,
it's just a different sort of experience. Yeah.
The problem with me, like, because these were both these movies, Blade Runner and this one, first time I'd ever seen them, is I've seen all the movies that came after that were inspired or influenced by these movies. So I've seen all the. It's not even that a lot of times they're much worse as far as cinematography and everything than these movies, but all the motifs and all of the storylines I've already kind of heard some variation of through various, hundreds of movies I've probably seen over my life that are in this genre.
Yeah, they're victims of their success a lot of the time when it's like when things have rehashed it so many times that it's like I've seen plenty of things where I've only watched the rehash versions and then go back to the original and it's like it's sort of lost its luster a little bit and it kind of gets retread like that.
But I don't know, like Carrie said it, and this is I think the big point. We've seen lots of rehashes that aren't as good. And that's the part that's kind of shocking to me. Like there is so much done in this movie that I 50 years later looked at it and I said, wow, I don't think I've ever seen anything that looked that good in space.
It's like, amazing. I mean, the color and just everything.
That blew my mind.
I just think of it's the, and I joked about this earlier, but it feels to me like the anti-Transformers or the anti-MCU movie where it's just all over the top, excess, and you want a hamburger, you want 3 patties and cheese and just like too much to handle. Too much.
Had the new nacho cheese chicken sandwich at Wendy's today. Speaking of over the top, that was delicious.
Exactly. Like I feel like modern movies are the American diet, and like this Kubrick movie is like going to Italy and having a real Italian pizza and a little bit of olive oil and some vinegar. You know what I mean? It's different. It's more subtle.
It is, yeah. I mean, it was a delicious sandwich, but I felt pretty terrible all day.
I'm surprised you're not in the bathroom doing this podcast.
What's weird about
now.
Wendy's or any fast food is after I eat it, I'm starving. Like it's so unsatisfying. I had this big giant, it's like 1,000-calorie sandwich and a big thing of fries, and afterwards I get home like, hey honey, want to go to Crumble Cookies? It's like still hungry. I don't know.
Wash it down with the cookie.
With a 2,000-calorie cookie.
Wow.
Wash this sucker down.
Dude,
see if I can't hit 600
before AI takes over, man. Before they take over our bodies and control us or whatever they're gonna do. Eat it up.
I mean, this is the next idea, right? A mukbang channel where we're just eating fast food all day, during our podcast.
Nikocado or whatever.
So I would say, I think it'd be interesting, especially because of how visual this film is, to name like some of our favorite scenes. And I don't know why, but the scene where the Pan Am flight is like landing on the moon. and you're back, and it's like
opening.
It opens up this like pod bay door, and you see this like big platform that it lands on, and it comes down. And I'm just thinking, in 1960, like this wasn't CGI.
Yeah,
like, they found a way to do this with practical effects, right?
Yeah.
And it's coming down, and you can see a little window on both sides, 2 windows, and one of them you can see people walking around, and it's like got this scale and this scope where the people are just tiny next to this ship that's coming down. And then there's another one where there's like a TV playing. It's like Barrett said, there's like, you can just look around and there's things everywhere.
That had to be.
And you're just like, I was blown away by that
Did the film editor from this movie win some sort of Oscar? Because I could imagine you had to film several different things and a
lot of the time, like these kind of movies don't win Oscars because they're like too ahead of the curve. Like the Oscars they kind of like catch up and they're like, oh wait, that was a masterpiece, but we're a couple years later. Like it seems like kind of almost that kind of thing where it's just a bit much for people, on that particular year. Because public opinion might not have even been that great at the time of the Oscars or something like that. But I agree. I mean, hopefully they have won.
I mean, so that's that scene, and the scene of like I was saying, like just the lady walking in the circle. In that plane, and like going into a hallway that I didn't know, and she was going in to talk to the pilot. Like those two. It's
like one of those MC Etcher pieces, like with all the
all the
steps going different directions. Yes. That's what it felt like.
Yeah, totally.
Those were my 2 scenes that stick out to me. And anytime I can see the pretty colored spacesuits, because I just love the way they look.
They're awesome. They're just so good. Yeah, I'm with you. And the pin floating. I remember seeing the trick. It's just a piece of glass. They just like held a piece of glass and moved it around like this, and then
did they really
pulled the pin off the piece of glass. And it's just like when you kind of combine that with all these other layers, like you wouldn't think of something as like simple as that, but just because they're layering it so heavily, you're just overwhelmed with the effect. It's so works so well.
So often I was like, how on earth? Like the only times you knew it was made in 1968 was like the scenes where they were in the space shuttle or in the space base or whatever talking, and they had the hairstyles and everything, and the way the mid-Atlantic accents and stuff of that time. That's the only time you realized it was actually made in that time period.
Yeah, like when they phoned home. I think when he phoned home, that was a really funny part to me.
Again, a payphone.
But a video, they got the video phone thing.
Yeah, it was the video phone, but it was like, oh, this is what it looks like in the year 2001. Or whatever.
You have to go into a private room.
What about the iPads? They had literal iPads.
Yeah, absolutely. They had iPads. That it's a funny thing. I think it was that Samsung used this film as defense in court against Apple
for the rounded edges.
Yeah, they're like, well,
it's legitimately iPads. It was insane.
Yeah,
they're actually cool looking. If you look at them closely, they're like, dang, if they made that today, it kind of has this sort of
kind of looks better than
kind of look
iPad.
to it. It looks better. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of cool.
That tripped me out though. That part, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so weird.
Right, considering how that was made, like so. There was it's sort of at like an angle, this iPad looking thing sitting on a table. It's kind of angled to the side to make it look like you just sort of laid it down there, but it's obviously built into the table. But all of the screens that you see in the movie are like these are film projectors. That's the technology they had. Really? Like, so they're film projectors at every single screen that you're seeing. And so you're seeing an iPad that is a film projector.
That's what you're talking about. Okay.
It's so crazy. Yeah, when he's eating the meal and the big donut thing.
When they make us aggressively watch him eat 4 different colors of food for 10 minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
He's just like, I'm going to eat the green food. What do you think the food was? I'm going to eat the red
I kept feeling like it was beans and guacamole or something. I wonder what it actually was.
There it is. I'm showing it right there, the iPad. Yeah.
They're like dope looking iPads. Like
that's
tablets,
cool.
I guess.
I don't know what he was eating, some sort of space food, but they complimented the space food once they got onto the little moon lander.
One of the foods they ate, like with the fork, the weird fork they had. The other one, he was drinking. Remember, he was drinking the different foods.
Yeah. Well, again, we get back to like, okay, so is this is a chicken and the egg thing, but our technology seems to be perfectly predicted in these very old films. Is it because these sci-fi writers think of these things and then we chase them and make them?
I think it's both.
Is it like like what came first? Like if they had, if Arthur C. Clarke and all these sci-fi authors had never written any of this, would we have an iPad? Would we have an iPhone?
Right.
I wonder.
Well, aren't the sci-fi people just kind of anticipating what a demand might be in the future, and then when that demand actually comes and the technology comes, and they look back and see like maybe what movies and authors have, and then they get inspired by that.
Isn't it interesting they couldn't get the iPhone? I mean, how far of a leap was that? They had the iPad, they had the video phone, they had phones. Like none of them thought in this movie, why not just make the phone the video?
Just make it smaller. Yeah.
Like you
honestly, it was probably a practical thing. They're like, well,
how
do you get a film projector down and put on? Just how do you put these little things everywhere? How do you make it actually mobile?
But this is one of the reasons I love sci-fi.
68.
I love just thinking about what could be, and
just projecting forward.
New sci-fi, they're still doing it. It's just so fun, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So I really do like that.
But it's still, I feel like, must be said just how amazing the AI, the idea of how the AI just takes shape in this film, like how amazingly forward thinking that was. Because I mean, you've got ChatGPT right there, and it's like, it's just not super different.
It's one thing to have AI helping you, but they were, those astronaut guys were completely dependent on
dependent
dependent on him to open up the bay doors, and so at
and
any
it's like
moment,
movies like this that I feel like causes society to be more cautious about AI and to say, well, I watched 2001 and I don't think I want to get on a ship where I've got
iRobot.
Where I've got this AI.
Let's let robots control a podcast, but not maybe a spaceship.
Right, something a little lower.
Exactly, lower
the stakes.
Yeah, lower importance. So I don't know. I think, to me, I cannot deny this is a great film, but it does not mean I loved every moment of this film.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, I would even rank it in the same category. Like I enjoy watching Blade Runner more than I enjoy watching this movie. But
at the same time,
I still love watching this movie. But it's just
I could rewatch the HAL segment pretty quickly. I also feel like I could jump to certain parts and not really mind that I skipped a part. Like, I don't really need to watch the ape part a bunch because they're just like making ape noises for 15 minutes. It's fine, but I don't need to be watching that constantly. And
that is pretty cool. Really the fact that stuff is on a set. I remember when I saw that stuff was shot on a set with the monkeys and whatnot. I was like, what?
Were they? Oh wow, that's
like, go back and look at those clips and sort of look
it was
around.
Outside.
Like it's wild. Like
that was all in a building carriage.
I'm like 99% sure, or 5 or something like that.
Well, we have a fourth member we can ask.
That's right.
Was the Dawn of Man segment shot in studio? Would that be the way to ask that question? Yeah. Okay, so let's see what it says here. So. Yeah, I don't need to watch that part a million times, but I do.
Yeah, I agreed. Yeah,
I could rewatch.
There's just certain parts that are just so kind of impactful.
Okay, it was filmed on location in various places to create a realistic and immersive prehistoric setting. Kubrick and his team went to great lengths to achieve authenticity.
Okay. Well, cut all this out. Yeah, sorry.
All right. No, that's why we have HAL to help. We should call ChatGPT HAL.
I don't know why I thought that. There was. Yeah.
Well, and they filmed it in the deserts of Namibia, so like in Africa, where the dawn of man actually would have occurred.
There you go.
That's
crazy. That is
the detail there, because I would have assumed they would have just went to like Palm Springs or something.
Well, that's in the book. In the book, it's in Africa. In the book, it's in Africa as well. So that is the setting.
But just the fact that, I mean, today, we've got it set in any location. Like, you just never shoot where it actually is. Yeah. Like, it just doesn't ever happen. Right. It kind of goes to show like what a perfectionist you're dealing with, I guess, with that particular director.
And then he gets killed by the Hollywood elite. No.
I know. It is kind of sad. Right, with the first weapon being found, and then he talks about that, and then 40 years later.
So what are some other of his films that I would know? Shining? I like that one.
Yeah, Full Metal Jacket.
Twins, the one with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito.
Love that
I'm
one.
assuming.
I always
not
kind
that
of
one,
like,
not that one.
Felt like I was the Danny DeVito.
Jingle
I
looked
way,
it up.
Jingle All the Way. Total Kubrick movie.
Yeah, I love that movie. I've got a Turbo Man in here somewhere.
Let me look. Let me Google that. I'm curious now. Because there are a lot of ones that when you... Full Metal Jacket, dude. One of my favorite movies all time. I love Full Metal Jacket.
Sergeant Pyle. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a good moment. Yeah, no, okay, so...
Yeah, Clockwork Orange.
Clockwork Orange, which before I watched this movie, I kept getting it confused with Clockwork Orange. I was wondering when that guy was going to like be dancing around murdering people, but that never happened.
I never saw Clockwork Orange.
I think that happens.
Is that a good
movie.
One?
Yeah. It's
okay.
That's one of my lesser favorite Kubrick movies, but people love it. Yeah, it's cult classic for sure.
He shot this right after Dr. Strangelove. I remember that.
Dr. Strangelove.
And I feel like maybe one of the only movies I like more than 2001 is Dr. Strangelove.
Well, that's what Arthur C. Clarke was saying, that Kubrick was coming off the high and the popularity of Strangelove, which apparently
that makes
really
sense.
Well
like people would be willing to jump into a theater after that, and I can imagine them feeling like almost duped in some ways, where they're like, wait.
Yeah,
I was expecting Strangelove, which kind of was, relatively linear, easy to follow kind of thing.
And this was more of an art
and then
piece,
this is what you get. Yeah. There's expectations there.
So I mean, listen, I think so. All our viewers, if they followed the instructions, they also had to sit through this film.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Did you stay awake?
100% of them watched 100%.
No, Mike. So I sent the podcast, the first episode, to Mike because I wanted someone to kind of give me a little feedback, and he said, "Yeah, it was great. You really liked the show." He said, "I'm renting." He said, "I've been avoiding 2001: Space Odyssey my whole life because it looked really boring, but I'm gonna watch it this
encourage
week."
people to be
Have a
refined
we broadened their horizons. Yeah, we broadened his horizons. He's watching it. I said, keep your finger on the fast forward button, buddy.
When I've heard about, actually, that's a thing I'm glad you brought that up. When I heard about, there are people that are watching movies at like 1.5x and stuff like that. Yeah. When I heard about that, I was just like, oh man.
They do it on YouTube all the time. People do it on YouTube all the time.
Okay, YouTube, that's a different story. Okay, but if you do that through 2001, I'm sorry, just don't watch the film. Like it's not for you. This is not made for you if you are wanting to fast forward through a movie like this. Yeah.
So I think it's kind of cool. Hopefully some of our other viewers watched it as well. Did you guys watch anything else this week? Were you was that it?
I went and saw Priscilla.
Was it?
What is Priscilla?
I saw Priscilla, which is the new Elvis movie about Priscilla Presley.
Oh, and who played Priscilla?
Gosh, I don't know her name. Some newer actress, and Jacob Evaldi played Elvis. So I don't know much. He was in like some Netflix movies. But the one thing that made me
use the actor from the new Elvis movie?
No, it's a different actor, and it's more like they don't even discuss the singing in this new movie at all. It's all about Priscilla and their love, and just kind of that Elvis was a kind of a big meanie all the time and kind of into drugs and stuff. But the whole time I was watching this movie, because I had just seen Priscilla earlier in the day, I was thinking Elvis probably saw this movie in the downstairs where he had the 3 televisions, and he was probably thinking it was cool. That's what I was thinking the whole time. I'm like, what did Elvis think of this movie? That's what I was thinking. He probably was like, oh yeah.
He was all shook up.
It's a weird thought to have, but yeah. Well, no, but it was also interesting in the fact that it was so long ago that Elvis would have, like somebody who has been dead my entire life, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Saw this movie and was a contemporary and saw,
No, that's a cool thought though. Like just kind of imagining a particular person.
Or my father
experiencing that. Yeah.
My father was born in 1939, so he would have been like late 20s, probably like the perfect time to see a movie like this in your late 20s. And I wonder what my dad would have. I never talked to him about it because I'd never seen it, and he obviously wasn't into it because he never talked to me about it. But like, I wonder what my dad would have thought, like, because he saw that, and then he saw Star Wars, then he saw Jurassic Park.
Didn't he read a lot of sci-fi books, or am I misremembering?
No, I don't know. That was my dad. Different. Yeah, that was your father. That was Alan.
No, so this actually, I had this audiobook. I had been wanting to listen to this for a very long time. And as watching the movie, I was like, I'm gonna listen. It's only a 6-hour book, maybe 5.5 hours after you take out the big forward. So it's a real easy, quick read. And I think that any movie, maybe I'll encourage you, Barrett, because if you love a movie like this or you love Blade Runner, these are really fast audiobooks that you'd probably like.
6 hours. That's kind of crazy.
It's really short. Yeah. So it's, and honestly, this was very close to the book because it was written with Kubrick. It was like you said, it was like a team effort.
I don't think I would have any trouble getting through that at all.
Yeah. So this is a good one. Mm-hmm. I do encourage people to do that from time to time, but
I like you as the sort of like knowledge master on our movies. So now that you've like put yourself in that position, you sort of have
listen
to
or read every book now.
Dude, honestly,
so when we get Beethoven the Fourth, when we get that inevitably, because it will happen if you do enough podcasts, you're gonna have to read the book.
Well, so like I've listened to all the Hunger Games many times, all the Harry Potters. There's a lot. I've probably listened to like 300 audiobooks, maybe 400. So a lot of movies, like I've just already listened to the book, but I also am always down for new books, especially if they're 6 hours. A lot of books are like, 36 hours. It's a little different. Like if ChatGPT tells us to
book
do
of the series of the
it's not going to probably happen. So I will say I was watching a show, so I subscribed as a trial to Shudder. Have you heard of Shudder? It's a streaming service because we need more streaming services. This one is dedicated to horror. Point. And I kind of like it because it's like $6.99 a month, no commercials, which is really nice. But they have a show called Creepshow, which is based off a show from the 80s called Creepshow, which is based off a comic book from the 60s called Creepshow. Basically, it's like Are You Afraid of the Dark? You remember from our childhood, that show? But a little more adult themed, right? It's a little more R-rated version of Are You Afraid of the Dark?
So like Tales from the Crypt?
Yeah, maybe? It's very similar to Tales from the Crypt. Exactly, yeah. And I watched like the first 4 episodes of it, and I really liked it. Like, it's campy, and there's some cheese on it. Someone put some of the easy cheese all over this show. But there's one. If you just do the free trial, watch episode 1. In each episode, there's 2 short, like 20-minute videos, stories, right? So there's a 40-minute episode A, 1A, 1B, right? Episode 1B is this little girl gets this dollhouse. And in the dollhouse, she has all these like little dolls, and she's named them. Well, this is Ethan, and this is Mom and his dad, and this is a dog, and they're so cute, and they're blah blah blah. And she walks away for dinner. She comes back, and all the dolls have moved in the house, right? And she's like, "How did you get over there, Ethan? How come you guys are there?" And like zooms in on their faces. Some pretty cool cinematography stuff, like where these dolls look scared. Somehow.
So it's like murder Toy Story.
It's sort of, yeah, like there's pretty much murder Toy Story. And like then she sees this little head, like a decapitated head that looks really evil and monstrous in there. And she's like talking to us like, "How did you get in there?" And she's a really good kid actress for some reason, where she's like not annoying, but actually quite good. She has like completely black eyes, which I don't know why, but I think that's kind of haunting and cool that she's got like her pupils are just, I don't know why she looks like that. Maybe it's a contact lens or something, but it's cool. And just the whole thing is cool because she keeps coming back home from like the things that she needs to do in life, and the story in the house is progressing. They're trying to find this haunted demon head, and they find it in one spot, and she like goes and buys like a police officer to put into the dollhouse to help them find the baddie, and the police officer gets murked by the baddie, and she comes back and it's like a dead doll. Like, I'm not going to spoil it any further than that. It's only 20 minutes, but it's a fun ride. That's all. I thought it was a really unique and fun story. So that was like my big thing I watched this week that I liked. Not only did I like it so much, I then went and watched it a second time with my daughter because she likes creepy stuff. And it's actually, for a 13-year-old, it's not over the top gory or language or anything like that. And she loved it too. So that was my thing that I liked this week. How about you, Barrett? That's cool. You've been working hard all week?
Oh, yeah. I guess that was like 2001. I was just trying to enjoy that. I enjoyed it in sort of segments, as the movie kind of is in segments. So sort of
so you did a rewatch. I know you've already seen it, but you went ahead and did a rewatch.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's
cool.
Like kind of
yeah. I think I think it's 2001 is great. I'm glad we reviewed it. I think it's cool, like that finally, because it's something I've always said. Oh, I need to watch that, but
It wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have happened. Like something that in life, it's like a movie for life's syllabus. Like you need to watch that at least one time, whether you like it or not, just so that you can understand.
Enriches your life a little bit. You kind of broadens your understanding of things.
So much.
I definitely feel that way about it.
What he just said is so true. Broadening your understanding, because instantly, like 5,000 references throughout my life clicked into place. It's like the dawn of time, the dawn of man. I'm like, oh, that's the first time this was said, the dawn of man. Like,
yeah, exactly.
That's in every Croods movie. Like, like just so many moments in my life in commercials. So again, in the foreword that I'll send you, Barrett, he talks about how like no one would have, me and Kubrick would have never expected a Super Bowl commercial where someone says there's been a problem, Dave, for that to like resonate with 500 million people watching, and they all know.
And the fact that it's your name and you've never known why everyone's calling you like.
And people will meet me. People will meet me and say a quote from this movie,
right?
Like,
and you'll just be like,
"There's been a problem. It's a bug, Dave." And I've never known what they were talking about.
I'm not 85. I didn't see this in the 60s.
Yeah, I don't even know what they're referencing, and I've probably had it said to me like 300 times. I've never understood the reference, and finally I get it. I finally get the joke.
Every time we make like an NSYNC reference to younger people, they're just like, "What?"
Yeah, they're like everybody, and they're just like, "What? What are we supposed to do?" Well, come on, rock your body. Like, how do you not know that?
It's fairly obvious.
It's all in the same breath. Yeah.
I think I'm scared. I really don't want to watch another movie like this week. So I feel like we have to guide ChatGPT away from 1960s movie just for 1 week. Like, how
we should ask ChatGPT. We should play with it a bit and just like pick the diametrically, or have it tell us the diametrically opposite movie that it gives us. Like,
that's a fun idea.
That's good.
So I could say like, I won't hit enter, but I could say something like, we need you to pick the movie for our next episode.
Let it pick one, and then we ask it to
do you want to like now qualify it? Like, we want it to be the exact opposite of this film?
I'm almost inclined to have it ask first, just so we get it out, just because sometimes I don't know.
Do we want to see if we can trust it? Because if it gives us another one of these space AI movies, then we know we can't trust it. Or maybe it's luring us in. Maybe it's trying to make us think that that's what it wants us to care about. Meanwhile, it's trying to trick us.
That's what I'm interested in. Yeah,
I kind of want to tell it that I want it to understand it doesn't need to be critically acclaimed. That's the other thing. Like, why is it giving us every critically acclaimed movie? Like, I want it to open its horizons and
it just goes to the top of IMDb.
It's just going. Is this in the Criterion collection?
What if we asked it to pick something obscure?
I like obscurity.
Should we go pick something obscure, and maybe something more recent than the 80s? We could do it that. I mean, how much level?
Well, do we want to give it a broad question to suss it out and see what it takes us, and then decide?
I'm gonna let Barrett pick. Answer? Barrett, what do you want me to write, or do you want me to hit enter?
Let's see.
It says we need you to pick a movie for our next episode. It says we need you to pick a movie for our next episode. Should I say anything else?
I don't think so. I think you should hit enter.
Okay. I feel like this is a character at this point.
Here we go.
Just having it make its crazy decisions.
Exactly. I just want to see what it says.
Oh, the social network.
Social network.
David Fincher. Okay.
There we go.
Right, so that's different.
Yeah, that's totally different.
Computer technology.
It's still technology in Silicon Valley, and
way easier pacing. Way more palatable.
Yeah, it's soundtrack is very important to this one as well.
ChatGPT is probably a personal friend with the Facebook creator guy. I can't remember his name right now.
I just mentioned NSYNC, and then we get a Justin Timberlake movie. So I'm just saying.
So I'm okay with just doing this. Should we just do it? Let's just do the Social Network.
I like that movie.
That's fine, yeah.
That's a good one to discuss, I think, too.
It says, I saw it in the theater when it first came out. When did this?
Me too, and I haven't seen it since, actually.
Me either. It came out in 2010, so 13 years ago, and I have very little memory of it. But I did watch the show Silicon Valley on HBO. It's a good one, too.
I think it'd be an interesting one because, we obviously grew up with we're basically the same age-ish as Mark Zuckerberg and grew up with Facebook. And then looking back at it, 10, 15 years later, I
think it's going to be interesting.
Facebook being where it is now, that'd be interesting in social
Honestly,
media.
there's a lot more. I remember leaving that film and, Googling a bunch of stuff like what happened to those twins, and they were all still embroiled in lawsuits. It'd be interesting to learn about.
Dude, they're rich. Everybody that was involved with that is very, very rich, dude.
Yeah. So the social network,
the Winklevosses or whatever their names are, they got into Bitcoin really early. And I don't know if they cashed out, but they were super rich for a while there.
Again, it did say Again, it did say acclaimed directing and acting, directed by David Fincher and featuring strong performance by Jesse Eisenberg, Andrew Garfield, and Justin Timberlake. The film garnered critical acclaim. Like, I still want to kind of tell it doesn't need to be a critically acclaimed film. But maybe we'll tell it that next week.
We do need to figure out how to do that though. We
do it right. Yeah, we're very careful with AI. We don't want it to like kill us.
We don't want to upset it. Because
we basically watching a movie of how it can kill you.
Yeah, we got subtly told, I will kill you if you don't do
it. Yeah, dude, and I'll say this about Hal. Let's talk about Hal for a second more before we end the episode. But in the movie, they don't have a secret meeting in the space pod, or in the book. I mean, in the book, they don't have a secret meeting in the space pod where he reads their lips, which is kind of far fetched. Let's be honest. But
why didn't you just turn backwards and talk to each other?
It was cool. It was cool, but it was like hard to believe that it could read lips with its camera. I mean, I guess the camera. Anyways, fine. That's fine. That's what happened in the book. Literally, NASA just says, "Oh, if it's wrong about this thing being broken, we're going to need to temporarily turn it down." And oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot to tell you guys this. This is so important, and I don't feel like they covered it. But basically, the reason Hal was broken. Do you feel like you understand why Hal broke? Why did he go crazy? Why was he broken? So in the book, they explain it.
Well, didn't he see the crew making decisions that basically would go against its directive? No.
So okay, so that's all funny. The guys who were in stasis, all the guys who were in stasis knew about the monolith on the moon. Okay, remember the monolith on the moon? This monolith, the whole point of the monolith is it proves there's alien life. But no one wants that news to get out. And they cover that in the movie, right? No one wants everyone to find out because there's going to be panic. It's going to be like this weird existential crisis if people know there's aliens that are real. And so their goal is to chase the signal that the monolith made on the moon. Remember the monolith made a really loud noise?
Yeah.
So the whole reason this mission with Hal is happening is they're going to where the signal went. The signal went to Jupiter or Saturn, depending on if you're in the book or the movie. And so they're chasing it down. But the two guys who are awake have no clue because they're going to be on the news.
Well, they got that message, like he got that message after he kills Hal. Right.
Yes. Which isn't what happened in the book, but similar. Okay, so basically, Hal knew. Hal knew and the three sleeping people knew that there had been detected alien life and that this was the point of the mission. But Hal was not allowed to tell the two awake people. And Hal, this broke Hal's brain. The fact that he was not able, that he was lying. He was being forced to lie
to their face.
So basically, forcing the programming to lie for this long period of time eventually broke his programming, which I think is really interesting. And I almost forgot to mention that. And after Hal gets shut off, he doesn't get fully shut off. He gets like dumbified. That's why he's slowly pulling out one thing at a time.
Into just playing
he turns him into like a very basic robot at the end.
It's almost like it started breaking down once it kind of became human, right? Because it was forced to... Yeah, it was forced to have that
to have a human trait.
That's interesting. Exactly. Yeah. And then it became frail like a human.
Yeah, and so what happened was after he dumbified Hal, he found a way, he fixed up the ship a little bit, he found a way to communicate back to NASA, and NASA sent him a message, and it was the guy who did the speech on the moon section saying, hey, this is what the whole mission was about. We never told you. Basically, there is aliens, we've discovered life, and we want you to continue. We know you won't be able to come home because the ship is now broken because the airlock was open, so you don't have much time. We can send you a rescue mission, but it's going to be 5 years. It's not enough time. You don't have enough supplies to last, blah, blah, blah. But we still want you to go there, and we still want you to report back on what you find. And that is why he ends up getting in the pod and flying towards the monolith and basically going through the monolith and transcending into an ethereal being that goes back to Earth. And to me, when he got back to Earth and was like a baby, it seemed like he destroyed the Earth. But I asked ChatGPT, and it said he did not destroy the Earth. So I guess that's just the way I feel like
that's what AI would want you to believe.
Yeah, whatever the AI
They're not going to tell you they're going to destroy Earth. You're going to get destroyed.
Like, no, everything
is fine. Don't worry about it.
So I don't know. I thought I almost forgot. I'm so glad I remembered. I wanted to tell you that context because I thought it was important. But yeah, literally they broke him by making him lie. That was the whole fault in their plan. And they ended up like redoing it back with some of their test HALs, and they were able to break another one by trying to get him to keep a secret as well. So, anyways, that's cool. That is 2001: A Space Odyssey. We hope you guys have enjoyed this episode of AI Picks Podcast. Make sure you subscribe and come back next time. And while we're away,
Social Network.
Watch The Social Network, starring Jesse Eisenberg. Is that how you say his name?
Yeah, he's just been the same character in every movie since then.
Pretty much.
Even Lex Luthor was just the dude from Social Network.
I think The Social Network is his sort of defining character kind of movie. I would
He's
say.
stuck in that role now. All right, bye, guys.